Hey guys, and welcome to today's tank review video where I react to, review, fix your tanks. Before we begin, I thought I'd just mention that we have launched a new guide over on Retrieve. If you didn't know, these guides are fully transcribed and translated. If you want to find an answer to a specific question or you want to go straight to a specific part of a video, you can simply type in a question or a keyword and it will go straight to that point. Or you can just watch the guides all the way through. They're pretty hefty. Our newest guide is all about health, everywhere from shedding to egg laying to parasites, all the wonderful things, and it can be bought as part of a bundle with the other two guides so you can save money. Also, another good thing about Retrieve is if you do have a question, you can contact me directly through the guides. So that is leopardgecko.retrieve.com/store if you want to check it out. But now onto the tanks. So our first tank is from Lovato. I hope I have pronounced that right. And basically they had two female leopard geckos living together in a 60 by 30 by 30 centimeter tank. And they recognise now they shouldn't probably have done that. So they are splitting them up, or they have split them up. Anyway, so from what I can understand from the email, Lovato built a second tank, this enclosure, which we'll get into in a moment. But also in the meantime, they adopted another gecko. So they're cohabiting the new gecko with one of the original geckos whilst Lovato builds a third tank. Now, to be honest, I would definitely discourage anyone from doing this because basically the new gecko should be quarantined for 9 to 12 weeks. And if anything the last year or two has taught us is we know what quarantining means. So you certainly should not put a new gecko with an original one. Reason being is that new one could be sick. It might be carrying parasites. It may even have sticktail, which is highly contagious and incurable. Now, it could be fine, but why take the risk? Now, ideally, and I don't want to have a go at Lovato, maybe they didn't know not to do this, although I have mentioned this quite a few times on my channel. But what you should always do before getting a gecko is have the setup ready. Definitely do not house a new one with your original one. It's just bad. Also, a 60 by 30 by 30 centimeter tank for one gecko is quite small, let alone two. So once again, I really don't want to have a go at Lovato. You know, we can always learn from our mistakes, but I thought it'd be good to point this out so hopefully nobody else does this. As for the tank itself, it's very creative. You've done a really good job at building this. I would probably opt for more effective hides rather than teepee, though I will say it does look cool. Also, I couldn't see a thermometer or a water dish. They could be in there, you have to let me know. And apparently the bowl in the middle is for food to avoid impaction from the sand. The sand is apparently Zoomed's Repti sand. I don't know too much about this substrate. I don't believe it's calci sand though, so that's something. But yeah, definitely in the future, if you plan on getting another gecko, just have the setup ready for it so it doesn't have to live with another gecko. So that was a lot to unpack, but honestly I think it's good that we talk about things like that because some people might not know that that was a bad thing to do. But anyway, now we have a setup from Zach, and this is very different. I've never seen a mesh front tank before. I know he says there is a hole in it, so that's what the towel is blocking up, but just be aware geckos can be great escape artists, so if you're able to get that replaced, perfect. But basically I wanted to look at this particular setup because he says he does provide UV, but he knows his gecko doesn't get a lot, so he gives it calcium and then calcium and D3. So, obviously I don't know what percentage UVB you're using. I don't know if you're getting the correct UV index. I don't know if you think your gecko isn't getting enough UV because you don't see it basking, like openly basking a lot. What I will say is you actually need a calcium powder and a vitamin and mineral powder, and since you're using UV you want one without D3. Okay, so let's just remember that because a lot of people only think they need to provide calcium and D3 or something. You need a calcium powder and a vitamin and mineral powder, and if you're using UV, the vitamin and mineral powder doesn't have to have D3 in it. What you can use is revitalized D3 because this has a very small amount of D3 in that can just top up your gecko just in case. Basically, what I think might be happening is firstly your gecko might be partially basking. That's what leopard geckos do. You're not going to see them always out basking like a bearded dragon, for example. So they might only pop their head out or a tail or a leg, and that's totally fine. The good thing about you using UV and having it set up correctly is the gecko can then judge for itself what it needs, because it knows itself far better than we know it. What also could be happening is, because you're providing that synthetic D3, the gecko has no need to bask, because, I mean, it's already got enough D3, if that makes sense. So I would cut that out. But also what I would do is I would move the UV over the hides. I really love the hides and the plants. This setup looks really cool, but the UV should go over the hide, whichever one is the warm hide, and that way the gecko can climb up on the hide and bask, or go down a little bit, or just pop a tail out the hide, and that could be the most effective way of doing this. Next up, we have a setup from Alex with his gecko Cosmo. Now, he doesn't say how big his tank is, he just wants my opinion on the setup. What I will say is it's nice to see some spacious hides in there that your gecko can actually use, but the tank does seem quite small. I don't know if it's just because the hides are big, so it makes everything look small, but what I will say is if it's only 10 gallon, I'd recommend going to a 20 gallon or bigger. I've heard there's actually like $1 a gallon sale in the US, which is amazing. We don't get anything like that over here. So if you're lucky to get that, definitely you can easily drop $20 on an upgrade. That is so cheap, I can't believe it. But also you can always get second-hand tanks that are bigger and save some money there. So what I would say, it looks like your gecko needs a bit more wiggle room. The tank looks a bit small, but yeah, if you could upgrade to something a little bigger, even better. Next, we have a nice spacious leopard gecko setup from Mouse. Now, the reason I really wanted to bring this one up is to do with the placement of probes and lack of thermostat, I think. So, as you can see, there's a deep heat projector, which is awesome. However, I feel like it'd be far more effective if below it you had a hide made from slate. You can use a normal hide, but this hide's quite small as well, so will your gecko be able to lay out underneath it? I'm not sure. But if you can make yourself a slate hide or buy a pre-made slate hide, or even like in Maui's tank, he has a resin hide, but he has a bit of slate over the top of it, that can make the heater far more effective. Now, another thing is you have the thermometer and hygrometer stuck on the side, the analog one. I don't really like these. They just read the air temperature and not the temperature your gecko is actually exposed to. However, you do say you have a thermometer probe under the hide, I think you say. So what you really want to do, because you're using a deep heat projector, is you want that thermometer to be on the outside. Same with a thermostat probe, okay? So whatever your gecko's being exposed to, you want to be reading that, because you might read that inside the hide's 30 degrees, but what's the temperature on the outside, okay? Because that heat is being blocked a bit by the hide, so it could be 35, I don't know. So what you really want to do is get yourself a slate hide, get a thermostat so you can set the temperature, and put the thermostat probe and the thermometer probes where the gecko will be basking, not underneath. And finally, we have a leopard gecko set up from Aaron, and he wants to make it look more natural, but also reduce humidity. He says he's currently using paper towel and earth mix arid, and uses a heat mat, but would like to upgrade to a deep heat projector. So firstly, I'd say ditch the paper towel and fill it all with earth mix arid, but you can add slabs of slate. I have some in Gizmo and Diego's tank, and not only do they lay on them, particularly in the evening on the cold side, but they work well when you are feeding your gecko, because if you've got mealworms or calcium worms, something that might try to burrow, you can put the food on there and they can get it there. So that works really well, and it should help the overall natural look. Now, you can also try adding a cork background. You can get them pre-made. As for reducing humidity, I think you'll feel a massive difference if you do swap from a heat mat to a deep heat projector, because anyone who's gone from a heat mat to the deep heat projector will tell you, like, you actually feel the heat. With a heat mat, you'd put your hand in and be like, okay, it's reading that it's on, but it's like kind of feels lukewarm. Whereas when you have that deep heat projector, like, even you can feel the benefits of that heat, if you know what I mean. So I think that will also help sort out humidity, because it will dry out the tank a little. But yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. A lot of these were like quite deep dives into the setup, but hopefully it has helped. If you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. But thank you for watching, guys, and goodbye.